AITA for not letting my nephew keep the Switch that my husband gave him. My 24F husband, 26 meters, is a high-functional autistic man. However, he tends to perceive small talks and questions as request. I don't really know how to explain it, but you have to be very specific with the things you ask him for. /2, for example, if you say that you like his phone and that you plan to get the same one, he's going to gift it to you immediately because he truly believes that's how the world works. It's confusing, but that's how his parents used to communicate with him and that's how he learned to respond. We are improving a lot and I know he has the biggest heart, but sadly, this has led to people taking advantage of him and taking his things away because he has a hard time saying no. Also, he just doesn't comprehend at first, but if you try to explain to him, he would eventually understand that you just want to talk and not ask him for anything. However, my family thinks that this is perfect, especially my sister and my Bill. Since my husband comes from a well-off family, they feel entitled to ask him for any luxury they want to have. An elegant dinner in a fancy restaurant with all paid. Ask cop husband, any material thing they want to have. Ask cop husband. Thanks to that, I had to block them on my husband's phone to make sure they can only talk to him in my presence, meaning that I can control the things they ask for and just say no. They think that I'm a bitch because I'm enjoying all his money and that I'm selfish because we're a family and we should share it all. I just ignore them because I'm not wasting his money, and I'm always trying to help him. I know that he loves my family and if it were for him, he would give them the world, but it's not fair. He isn't an ATM. Yesterday, my sister 31F, Bill 38 meters, and my nephew 8 meters, came to hang out with us, which seemed rare, but okay. I let it go because my husband was so happy to see them and he really adores our nephew. So while they all were playing, my sister expected me to be their maid because they deserve a day in my life. We ended up arguing over this and my husband took our nephew away. They, again, called me a selfish bitch and I ended up asking them to leave and called my nephew. When he came into the room, he had my husband's Switch with everything he had in his hands. He said that my husband gave it to him, which again, was confusing, so I asked him if that was true and he said that my nephew asked him if he could keep it and that he said yes. He looked like a beaten puppy and I told my nephew that he couldn't keep it cause that belonged to my husband and reminded him of his uncle's condition, that maybe we could give him one for Christmas. My sister and Bill started to argue that if he gave it to him then he could keep it and tried to leave with it. I was honestly tired at this point and just took the Switch back and told them to stop behaving like beggars in front of their kid. Edit, guy didn't expect this to blow up as it did. It's late now, but I will try to answer some of you tomorrow. However, there's something I want to address. My husband's family is not abusive, they are not bad people, and his brother loves him with all his heart. Please stop acting as if trusting them is the biggest terror of my life. Guys, it's not, they adore him. NTA. But have you looked into some sort of conservatorship for your husband? He does not sound like he should be empowered to be making decisions about money and property. He doesn't. His father is his conservatorship, but since we got married they let me take care of our big expenses. We have a great relationship cause we both want the best for him, and even though he has money we live a simple life. I ask for things below the credit that they set as suspicious purchase for someone of his faculties. NTA. They are teaching their son that it is okay to take advantage of a disabled person. I wouldn't leave any of them alone with your husband. This should be seen as a form of abuse. Don't worry, they can't. My husband took our nephew away because we were arguing and he didn't want him to be exposed to that. My mistake too. But they get along just fine. I'm sure that he learned his lesson. However, my sister and Bill are not allowed to be alone with my husband, so thank you so much for worrying about him. NTA. And honestly, I would not allow the adults back in your home. What they are doing would be considered abusive if you weren't there to intervene. In fact, I would make certain all of your affairs are in order. In other words, if something were to happen to you, or if you had to go on a big trip, make sure there is someone else in your husband's life that can intervene, such as his parents or someone else who understands. His parents are the one in charge of him actually. They gave me a ton of freedom regarding our financial life and decisions that involves him and his health, but I'm not the primary caretaker. his father is. Thank you so much for thinking about his safety. They are not allowed to be here without me, but apparently that will never stop them, so I will close my house entirely and only let them come in Christmas with the rest of our families. AITA for pursuing full custody because my ex asked me for help. My ex and I have 2 kids, 11F/8 meters, together, and I have another with my current husband, 7F. My ex usually has them every other weekend. Last weekend, my ex called me to come get my daughter at 1 AM. Apparently she had food poisoning, at least I think. She didn't have a fever or anything and was fine the next day except for a stomachache, and had run to the bathroom to throw up, and ended up vomiting and pooing at the same time. I asked him to handle it because it was 1 AM and he lives almost an hour away, but he insisted he couldn't. Came over and found my daughter sitting on the bathroom floor crying, and there was vomit and poo everywhere because my ex hadn't cleaned it up. He said he was too disgusted and couldn't deal with it. I ended up cleaning the bathroom and wiping my daughter down with some washcloths. I woke my son up and took them both home, and we didn't get to bed until almost 4 AM. The next day I called a lawyer and then informed my ex that I was pursuing full custody because he clearly can't handle having the kids if he can't take care of them when they're sick. He obviously disagrees, and now I also have mutual friends and my dad saying that I don't understand how hard it is to be a single parent because I have my husband to help and it wasn't his fault that he was overwhelmed. AITA for pursuing full custody after this. He left your daughter crying and covered in her own vomit and poop for over an hour. NTA. NTA When I was maybe 11 I got super sick at my dad's house in the middle of the night. I tried to stagger to the bathroom but couldn't make it in time and threw up all over the hall. My father's response was to scream at me that I could have made it to the bathroom if I had tried and to clean up my mess. My 13-year-old sister screamed at him he was a terrible excuse for a father while I stood there, shivering, sobbing, and apologizing. Never mattered how much he apologized after the fact. That will always be one of my strongest memories of the bastard, and one of many reasons he was eventually cut out. NTA My brother and his wife, who have no kids of his own, kept my 3 one night for an uncle/aunt's slumber party. He lives about an hour away. My oldest got sick too, throwing up in the middle of the night. He cleaned her up, cleaned the house up, and then called me in the middle of the night to ask if he could give her Pepto or if he needed to give her any other meds. Then he hung up, kept her all night and returned her the next day. Your ex and the family/friends taking his side are full of it. He wasn't doing the bare minimum to care for his child. He left her in filth for an hour waiting for you and then just expected you'd clean it all up. Screw that. 6 months into our relationship, I got food poisoning while I was on a date with my fiancé and threw up all over my bathroom floor. He got me into bed, and cleaned up my bathroom while I slept. And I'm not even his kid. This man has no excuse. NTA. NTA I found my daughter on the bathroom floor crying and there was vomit and poo everywhere. Yeah, no. It sounds like that's no longer a safe environment for them. AITA for refusing to go on a surprise vacation with my wife's family. You are probably thinking, amazing a vacation, I wish I could go on one right about now, and you would be right. I would love to go on a vacation, but not this one. I'm 30M and my wife is 26F, and if I am honest, I adore my wife but I absolutely hate her family. Her mom is a know-it-all who thinks everything is her business. Her sisters are bitchy snobs who criticize everything despite being anything but successful themselves. Their kids are spoiled brats. Her dad is just a broken man who seems to have given up decades ago, and the rest of her extended family is pretty much like the rest. Somehow and in some way my wife got all the good genes and ended up being an extremely sweet, today I fucked up, caring, empathetic woman. Well, yesterday my wife decided to surprise me. She prepared a really romantic meal, wine, candles, the whole shebang for my shabby ass after I got home from work, and she told me we were going on a 3-week-long vacation to a secluded cabin in a great hiking area of my country, given I had to take up my vacation weeks anyway. I was honestly pretty damn excited. I love hiking. I grew up in a small town with loads of nature and used to hike pretty much daily. I love cabins, and honestly I really needed the break as my job has been extremely stressful. Shortly after, she revealed with the biggest smile that it would be a huge family vacation with her mom, her dad, her sisters, their kids and a cousin and her kids, and honestly my heart just dropped. Trust me, I do my absolute best to stand these people when I see them for the sake of my wife and act like the perfect son-in-law, but the idea of spending my only vacation days in a cabin with these absolutely horrible people is just a full-on no for me. I'd rather stay at home doing jack shit for 3 weeks. I've been with them on a vacation once, and the entire time it was just them arguing, complaining and us being forced to take care of her sister's hellspawn half the time. I straight up said that I was not going to do that again and that she was free to go, but I am not going. She started crying and seemed extremely upset I reacted the way I did, despite never hiding how I feel about her family. We ended up arguing a whole bunch, and she ended up leaving to stay with her best friend who lives down the street. Am I being an asshole here? I sure feel bad, but I also feel like this is just legitimately fucking up the few weeks a year I get off, and I honestly just want to have some peace and quiet. Just to be clear, she wants to leave the day after tomorrow. NTA, that's not a vacation. That's a trip to hell. I know. NTA, from the way you tell it, it sounds like she knew you wouldn't be happy. The meal, the good news, and then bring up the bad news. She should have discussed this with you as a partner, not tried to trick you. Maybe suggested 1 week with them and then 2 weeks just the two of you somewhere else as a compromise. How well does she get on with her family? Maybe she thought she is obliged to attend and wanted you to be there to make it bearable for her, but it's still the wrong way to go about it. She gets along with them great. I literally have no idea why. Like I said, it's generally just arguing, issues and babysitting, but whenever we drive home she mentioned she had a great time, and I am just like, how the few tuck did you have a good time? As for the 1 week with them, honestly her family will just regard it as us leaving and them not being good enough for the other weeks and take offense. They are literally overdramatic douchebags. There is no nice way of saying it. 3 weeks. All crowded into a cabin with people you hate, that she knows you hate. Oh, hell no. Have fun with your fam, honey. I'll see you in 3 weeks. Seriously, WTF is she thinking? And to spring it on you only a couple of days before. NTA, might be a good idea to tell her that I am going to spend the 3 weeks with my own family. NTA, my husband likes my parents and siblings, and I still wouldn't sign us up for even a weekend trip with all of them without discussing it with him first, and I would expect the same from him. Lucky bastard.